And shifting gears now, in Australia, we're a little bit full up to the gills with high-profile figures in business and politics falling foul of what we call good behaviour. And now it seems like it's coming back to bite them. And it looks like employers are really at the tip of this newly formed iceberg as poor conduct claims continue to research. And looking closely at where we are in this space, Jodie Paul from People and Culture Strategies, joins us live via Skype. Jodie, what's coming back to haunt us now, and what can employers, what can they do about it?
Well, I think employers need to understand that what they are seeing, and all of us are seeing playing out in most prominently in the world of federal politics, but not just in that particular world. If you look at a number of high-profile sexual harassment claims in the last 12 months, a lot of those involved incidents that happened quite a few years ago, albeit the person might have still been with the same organisation. Employers need to understand that given the current environment, there's no practical statute of limitations when it comes to something like this. And what we've seen very clearly in the last few weeks is that there are things that might go back 20, 30 years, and perhaps even longer, which if you are still in a position of prominence, be that in a political role or in an executive role within a corporation or another organisation, that time period is not limited to the last 6 months, 12 months, or whatsoever you've been in that role. It may go back to anything that you have done in your life, in any context. And you as an employer need to understand that if you're not ready for that, as most employers probably wouldn't be, then you may have some very serious questions to answer. And it's a really tough time, on top of everything else for employers at the moment, to be having to deal with some of these things.
Of course, because when you're dealing with historical allegations, it's a case of one word against another. It's very difficult to go and get actual hard evidence on that space. So what can businesses do to go and limitate their exposure, their risk, if something like this happens?
Well, look, I think at a practical level, employers probably, if for no other reason but just to protect themselves, are going to need to start incorporating into their recruitment strategies and interview questions some fairly open-ended and broad questions requiring disclosure of things that might go over and above the things that they're asking for at the moment. So perhaps at the moment employers might be asking about criminal record checks and things like that, but it might need to be broadened into something, for example, such as is there anything in your past that if it was to come to our attention could cause this organisational level of embarrassment, having regard to XYZ values or the fact that we stand for this or any number of other things. Now, look, some employers and some people watching this, listening to this might say, well, yes, as if anyone's going to admit to that. But at least from an employer risk management point of view, you've asked the question. And then if something comes up afterwards, you've got a leg to stand on in terms of taking action against that particular person.
I was just thinking, this is, as we say, could be historical, but in the here and now, perhaps we should be advising businesses, because in the here and now, working from home or being stuck at home could have future mental health implications. Or what if the workplace says you must have a vaccine before you come back to work? So this is sort of a conversation that we could be having now about COVID strategies that could haunt an employer down the track in 10 to 15 years' time.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, employers at the best of times are going to be challenged dealing with the issues in the here and now. And when we throw into the mix that there might be any number of things that could be slanted, if I could put it that way, around what is happening now and how that might be characterised at some later stage, it's really hard for employers to have that foresight. I mean, it is, as I say, hard enough to deal with what's the right thing to do at this particular point in time, let alone, well, what might societal shifts say about what we are doing now, what we're seeing now, in 5-10 years' time.
Jodie Paul, People and Culture Strategies, thanks for joining us on the program today. Look forward to speaking again soon.
Thanks for having me.